You're sitting in a control room, watching a screen that shows the entire eastern half of the United States as a living, breathing organism. It's a map of the electrical grid, pulsing with light. Green lines represent power flowing smoothly. Yellow indicates strain. Red is a warning. For decades, this system has been the quiet, humming background of modern life. It's so reliable we only think about it when it stops. And when it does stop, the change is instantaneous. One moment, civilization is running. The next, it's dark, silent, and still. This is the paradox of the grid. It's the largest and most complex machine ever built, a monument to human engineering. Yet it can fail in seconds. Not slowly, not gradually, but catastrophically fast. Why? If it's so strong, why is it so fragile? This is the Energy Historian, uncovering the hidden systems that power civilization. To understand this, you have to stop thinking of the grid as a single, solid thing. It's not a monolithic block of power. It's a ballet, a delicate, high-speed, real-time performance happening across thousands of miles, involving hundreds of power plants, millions of transformers, and billions of devices, all choreographed to a single, unbreakable rule: supply must always, exactly, match demand. At this very second, the electricity you're using to watch this was generated a fraction of a second ago. It cannot be stored in the wires. There is no giant battery holding it for you. It is produced and consumed in the same instant. This is the grid's first hidden fragility. It's not a warehouse, it's a tightrope. Now, the system is designed to handle this. It has reserves, backup plants that can spin up in minutes, and sophisticated computers that constantly adjust the flow. But the design assumes a certain kind of stability. It assumes gradual changes, people waking up and turning on coffee makers, factories starting their shifts, the sun setting and lights coming on. The grid is brilliant at managing predictable waves. What it cannot handle is a shock, a sudden, massive, and unexpected loss of supply, or a surge in demand. Think of it like a juggler expertly keeping 10 plates in the air. The skill is incredible, but throw a sudden 11th plate at them, or knock one out of their hand, and the entire act collapses in a cascade of breaking ceramic. The grid fails not because it's weak, but because its stability is an illusion, maintained by perfect, perpetual balance. So, what provides that balance? The answer is inertia. Not in the metaphorical sense, but in the literal, physical sense. Across the grid, hundreds of massive generators, steam turbines in coal, gas, and nuclear plants, the blades in hydroelectric dams, are spinning in sync at exactly 60 cycles per second. These gigantic rotating masses have kinetic energy. They are flywheels for civilization. When you suddenly turn on a million air conditioners on a hot afternoon, that collective mass of spinning steel slows down imperceptibly to provide the extra juice, giving control systems precious seconds to command another power plant to ramp up. This physical inertia is the shock absorber. It's the grid's immune system, and we are quietly removing it. Here's where the modern twist enters. The energy transition is replacing these giant spinning machines with power electronics. Solar panels and wind turbines don't spin with heavy rotors in sync with the grid. They produce direct current that is converted to AC by smart inverters. These inverters can provide what's called synthetic inertia, responding with digital speed. But it's not the same. A digital signal can fail in a way a 500-ton steel rotor cannot. The physical grid is gaining intelligence, but losing its mass, its innate stability. We're replacing a robust, dumb flywheel with a smart but fragile microchip. This isn't a judgment on the transition, it's a structural fact. The new architecture is more efficient, cleaner, and flexible. But it is also fundamentally different, and its failure modes are still being discovered. This brings us to the cascade. How does a local problem become a regional blackout? It happens through a process called falling dominoes. The grid is divided into three major interconnections in North America: the Eastern, Western, and Texas grids. Within these, it's a network of thousands of transmission lines. These lines have limits, like highways can only handle so many cars. If one major line fails, snapped by a storm, sagging into a tree in the heat, or automatically shut down to prevent damage, the power it was carrying doesn't just vanish. It instantly seeks a new path, flooding onto neighboring lines. Those lines, now overloaded, heat up, sag further, and may also trip offline to save themselves. With each trip, the remaining lines bear more and more of the total load until a critical one fails. The system, now starved of paths, begins to separate into islands. Generators, suddenly disconnected from the load they were serving, go into emergency shutdown to avoid destroying themselves. The lights go out. This entire process can take less than 10 minutes, from a single tree branch to darkness for millions. We've seen this script play out. The Northeast blackout of 2003 began with a single overheated transmission line in Ohio sagging into a tree. Operators in the control room missed the warning because their alarm system had failed. Within 90 minutes, 50 million people across the US and Canada were without power. The 2021 Texas freeze is another masterclass in cascading failure. The immediate trigger was a loss of natural gas supply to power plants due to frozen wellheads and pipelines. But the systemic trigger was a market design that prioritized cheap electricity over resilience. Plants weren't required to winterize. When the extreme cold hit, generators failed faster than demand dropped as people cranked their heat. The frequency of the grid, that sacred 60 Hz, began to fall. Below 59.4 Hz, the system was seconds from a total blackout. Operators had to make a brutal choice: circuit power to millions or let the entire grid collapse. They chose the rolling blackouts that weren't rolling, saving the physical infrastructure but exposing the human cost of fragility. Which reveals the grid's deepest vulnerability. It's not just a physical machine, it's an economic and political one. The wires may fail physically, but they are strung together by incentives, regulations, and markets. The Texas grid, operated by ERCOT, is deliberately isolated from the other two major interconnections to avoid federal regulation. This gave it independence, but also eliminated a lifeline. When its own generation collapsed, it couldn't import meaningful power from neighbors. Its strength became its weakness. Similarly, across the US, investment has flowed for decades to the flashy ends of the system: new solar farms, new gas plants, but not to the unglamorous middle, the transmission lines and substations. We've built a powerful internet of energy, but we're still running it on copper installed in the 1960s. The incentive is to build new capacity where it's profitable, not to reinforce the aging backbone where it's needed. So we arrive at the uncomfortable realization: the grid isn't fragile because it's poorly built. In many ways, it's a miracle it works at all. It's fragile because it is a real-time system operating at the absolute edge of its capacity, with shrinking margins for error. Its stability is a condition maintained every second by a combination of physics, human decision-making, and financial logic. Change any one of those elements, remove the physical inertia, overwhelm the operators with data, or misalign the market incentives, and the condition can break. The speed of the failure is simply a reflection of the speed at which the system itself operates. At 186,000 miles per second, electricity doesn't give you time to think. The real question then becomes not if the grid can fail fast, but what we are building in its place. Are we constructing a system that is merely efficient, or one that is resilient? A system that is cheap, or one that is robust? The old grid had the resilience of mass and inertia, but was dirty and centralized. The new grid promises clean, distributed power, but with a stability that must be digitally manufactured and defended. We are, in essence, trading one set of vulnerabilities for another. The next time the lights flicker and go out, it won't be because the machine is broken. It will be because the perfect, invisible balance that keeps it alive was lost. And in that sudden silence, we'll remember that civilization doesn't run on resources, it runs on flow. And flow is the easiest thing in the world to stop. If this gave you a new perspective on the silent system powering your world, hit subscribe. Let me know in the comments. What's the longest you've ever been without power, and what did it reveal about the infrastructure you depend on?